Hello, this is Magnus, and the next camera I want to talk to you guys about is the Samsung NX1. Before I go on, I want to mention that yes, I am an employee of Samsung Electronics. Now, I don't work in PR or anything like that, but I feel that it's important to mention so that you don't think that I have some sort of bias. I'm speaking from a completely unbiased role here. I actually enjoy this camera, and I actually have two of these. A couple of reasons that I want to talk to you about why I like this camera. First and foremost, since I'm mostly on video and I'm not very much a photography person, I enjoy shooting 4K video. Now, I bought this shortly after release because I was interested in the 4K capabilities of this camera. First of all, this camera is a 28 megapixel camera in an APS-C sensor. Now, what that means, it's a slightly cropped sensor compared to a full-frame camera. But when I first got this camera, one challenge that I had to deal with was the fact that the encoding of this camera is H.265, which is HEVC. Let's just say it's like the next generation of H.264. Now, H.265 requires a pretty hefty, powerful computer to be able to play those files, let alone edit. Back then, editing software did not support this new codec. With time, software caught up and support for the codec caught up, and then eventually I can tell you I can edit just fine with this codec. But one thing that I like about this is the fact that you can fit more video into a smaller card and it be excellent 4K quality that you get out of this camera, which is what I really enjoy. It's got 120 frames per second at 1080p footage. Slow-mo is amazing on this camera. Now, those are plenty of reasons why I enjoy. The autofocus tracking also works, is pretty stellar, which I needed autofocus during my video shots. The Canon 6D, which is the other camera that I spoke about last time, it does not do autofocus during video, which was kind of a letdown for me, but that's okay because the Samsung NX1 handles it pretty well in well-lit conditions. A couple of items that I picked up after I picked up this camera are, of course, the two best lenses. I got the 16 to 50 2 to 2.8 S lens, and then in here, the beast of a lens, the 50 to 150 2.8 S lens. These two lenses are pretty much the top of the line of what Samsung offers. I wanted to get the two top lenses so that can help with my video, and pretty much this covers all perspectives. Although this is a mirrorless camera, this beast is pretty big, but it's very useful when it comes to video. Like I said, the autofocus, the settings, the touch screen that you've got, the swivel out screen in the front. I mean, this helps during a lot of situations. And the fact that I can cover pretty much anything I need with a small memory card and get 4K footage for an extended period of time is amazing for me. I have to say, it's one of the best features. Now, 4K was important for me, but also was lens choices. Now, Samsung's lens choices weren't as vast as Canon's, which is the other type of camera that I tend to use. So I opted to get a lens converter. Now, lens converter gives this camera a few limitations, but advantages in the fact that I can still use different types of lenses on this camera that are, of course, belong to the EOS family. I got this photodiox converter for the EOS Canon family. It's an EF and EFS lens mount system. So this itself is that 70 to 300 lens that I mentioned in my previous video. You guys could go check that out. And it fits perfectly thanks to this lens mount. And it feels tight, it feels secure. There's no wobbly. It's a really good converter. Now, a couple of the downsides is, first, you cannot change your aperture. So I would recommend getting a manual aperture lens so that you can change it on the actual lens if you want to have control over that. And the other downside, of course, is that you get no autofocus. Basically, there's no power communication between the lens and the camera body. So that's a couple of downers. But it's an excellent camera. I love this camera body. It's pretty much one of my favorite camera bodies, which is why I now have two of them. I want to talk to you about something that I mentioned in my last video, which is the Canon 5D Mark IV. That was the camera that I was looking forward to. That was the camera that I wanted to get. I was interested in a Canon body with 4K footage. Now I know that the Canon 1DX Mark II also does 4K, but I wasn't interested in that price. I wanted something a bit more affordable, yet high quality. So I figured the 5D family would be what I would want to get. I of course put in a pre-order for that camera, but however, when I'm looking at the specs and looking what it offers, there's a bit of frustration that I currently have with the 5D. So it does 4K. It does 4K at cinema 4K style. I'm still not sure, or relatively sure, if it does 16:9 4K, but it does cinema 4K at 30 and 24 frames per second, which is good. But the codec on it is the MJPEG codec. To me, that's a bit frustrating, and it's a letdown. My NX1 does, like I said, the advanced H.265 codec. It's great for data compression, and it's great for actually recording high quality footage at a low bit rate. Now, like I said, previously there was problems with editing that type of footage in software, but that was a couple of years ago. Today, now that I've got a PC that can pretty much handle it with a GTX 970 video card and an i7 processor, 3rd generation, this is unconverted 4K footage, H.265 codec, no issues working on my editing software. None whatsoever. I can move back, I can move forth, not a problem. Unfortunately, with the Canon 5D Mark IV, you have an issue where you've got that MJPEG, and the bits per second, at least on the 1DX Mark II, was 500 megabytes per second. To me, that is a little too much to handle. A card with a large capacity still won't be able to get a large amount of footage in 4K due to this issue. And I believe that this is a mistake by Canon, because by using an advanced codec, it would be a lot easier at the very least to work with that, and then if your computer can't handle it, then you transcode it to another format of your choice. But to choose a codec that requires such high data to then be unable to do longer standing videos, and then when you go, you have to encode it anyway because the files are so big, it's probably going to still slow down your computer anyway. To me, that's a bit frustrating, and Canon should have at least thought, or at least considered, a different codec. I would hope and pray that they would release a firmware update that can actually work with the new advanced codec, but I don't see that happening. I don't believe that Canon's firmware updates are too frequent. Let's talk about my next frustration, the slow-mo frames per second. Now, the NX1 can do 120 frames per second at 1080p. The GH4 can do 96 frames per second at 1080p. But the 5D Mark IV only does 120 frames per second at 720p. Now, there's not an annual release of 5D cameras. You have to wait a few years before you get that next camera to come out. So you're telling me that this camera is supposed to carry us through the next few years and can only do 120 frames per second at 720p? To me, that's an issue. To me, I was excited about the 5D Mark IV, but with these releases, it seems that for most videos where I would like to get creative with my shots, I'm going to have to stick with my NX1 bodies. And for me, I don't think that that's a little bit of a letdown. However, I'm still getting a 5D Mark IV. I believe that I would like to have another Canon body so I can pair the Canon bodies, get similar quality when it comes to filming certain videos, because Canon is known for their warmer colors when you take pictures or video at a certain setting. So I can have those cameras match those settings, and then my NX1s, I can have their cameras match their settings and get whatever I need from whatever I'm looking for in my film shoots. Anyway, that's all I have to say. If you have any comments, questions, or opinions that you'd like to leave me, please feel free in the comments below. In any case, you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. It's a really nice body, though. Really nice. NX1.